let's start with the prayers to help us get into a positive state of mind, and and then we'll do a meditation. Last week I introduced the second of the four immeasurable thoughts, which is compassion. And I explained compassion and how to meditate on compassion, but we didn't have time to do it. So I thought this time we'll start with a meditation on compassion after the prayers. Okay, so I'll put the prayers on. Still can't get it to mirror. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think the prayer sheet should start with the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta, then the four measurables. There should be a file called abbreviated prayers. And in the meantime, more people are joining. That's nice. That's the one. Okay, so we'll recite the prayer of refuge and bodhicitta. If you want to join me doing that, it's up to you. And then we'll do the prayer of the four measurable thoughts and then go into the meditation. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So take a few moments to try to let the words we just recited sink into your mind, into your heart. See if you can feel how wonderful it would be if everyone, all beings, could be happy, could have happiness, meaning everything they need to be comfortable, for their minds to be happy and free of suffering and problems and worries and difficulties. Now, that may seem like a fantasy, a fairy tale, but At this moment, it isn't possible, but we can still have the wish, the aspiration for it to come about, and then put our energy into doing what we can to bring that about. And in this series of talks and meditations, we're learning ways in which we can increase our own positive qualities, our positive thoughts and feelings towards others, like love and compassion. And if we do that, we can make a difference to others. We can make a difference to the world, even if it's just a small contribution to that. That it is something we can do. And if we continue working on these qualities in our mind, then our ability to reach others and help others will increase more and more. So see if you can have that as your reason, your motivation for being here, joining this class, so that you can increase love and compassion and other positive qualities, positive thoughts and feelings towards others, and be able to bring more peace and happiness to others and to the world. So, as I mentioned earlier, we'll do a meditation on compassion now, because we didn't have time to do that last week. So I'll just remind you of some of the points that we covered last week. Compassion means wanting others to be free of suffering, and ourselves as well, wanting everyone, all beings, to be free of all suffering. So we do feel compassion naturally, spontaneously, when someone we know and care about is unhappy or unwell or in pain. And we feel moved by that. We feel something in our heart moved to want to relieve their suffering, to do what we can to help them find, or either help them ourselves or help them find the help they need in order to be free of suffering. So that's the general meaning of compassion. And ideally, in Buddhism, we want to cultivate compassion for more and more and more people, not have it only for a limited number of people, but more and more people all the time, and eventually all living beings. Be able to have compassion for all living beings. So first of all, spend a few moments contemplating that everybody, every person, yourself, and also everyone else wants to be happy and wants to be free of suffering. So this is something we share, something we have in common, deep in our minds and our hearts. We're just trying to avoid suffering and problems. Nobody likes that. Animals, insects, birds. So every being is trying to avoid suffering, trying to be free of suffering, problems. And every being is trying to be happy, trying to get what they need in order to be happy. So just contemplate that. Try to get a sense of how this is the case. We are all the same in this very basic, simple way. And in case you think there's something wrong with feeling that way, according to Buddhism, no. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be free of suffering. It doesn't mean we're selfish, that we're bad somehow. This is just a natural, instinctive state of mind. And according to Buddhism, everyone deserves to be happy. Everyone deserves to be free of suffering. It's kind of like our human right, our right as living beings, sentient beings. So it's completely legitimate, valid, okay to have these thoughts and feelings. So now, bring to mind a person you know and care about. It could be a family member or a friend, someone you already have good feelings for. And if you can, imagine that person in front of you as if they're sitting right in front of you. And think about how, even though this person wants to be happy, doesn't want suffering and problems, they do experience problems, suffering, difficulty. They sometimes get sick, or they have pain, or they have mental, emotional problems, or problems with other people, problems at work, and so on. Think about one or two of the problems that you know that this person is experiencing. And then see if you can feel how wonderful it would be if this person could be free of those problems, free of all problems and suffering. And you may not be able to really feel that feeling of compassion, but we can recite phrases, words to help bring about that feeling in our mind. So I'll make suggestions, and you can recite these words, or you can change them to some other words that you're more comfortable with. So focusing on that person, say, may that person be free of physical suffering. Or you can just say to yourself, I wish you to be free of physical suffering. And then wish them to be free of mental suffering, using whatever words you're most comfortable with. then wish them to be free of the causes of suffering. And now think of another person. This time, someone you don't know so well. You know them a little bit, but you're not really close to them. It could be a relative, a neighbor, someone at work, or even a total stranger that you read about in the newspaper or on the news, on TV, someone going through difficulties. And contemplate that this person is just like you, just like the last person you thought about, and that they don't want any suffering, any problems. And see if you can feel how wonderful it would be if they could be free of suffering and problems. Then use words to express that to yourself, like, may you be free of physical suffering. May you be free of mental suffering. May you be free of the causes of suffering. And now let's see if we can generate compassion for ourselves. So we also deserve compassion. Some people have difficulty being compassionate to themselves, but we can learn how to do that. So just get in touch with your basic natural wish to be free of suffering and problems. And then wish yourself to do that. Wish yourself to be free of physical suffering. Wish yourself to be free of mental suffering. Wish yourself to be free of the causes of suffering. So that is to give you an idea of how to do the meditation on compassion. And you can spend as much time as you wish bringing to mind different individuals. It is recommended that we do one person at a time. That makes it more real, more genuine, rather than just a whole mass of people or beings. And it's recommended that we start with easy people we already like, care about, want to be free of suffering. But, just spend some time contemplating that, how wonderful it would be if they could be free of suffering. May they be free of suffering. So that increases our feeling of compassion. When we're more familiar with the practice, we can move on to those who are a little more distant from us, and then gradually add on more and more people and beings who are further and further distant from us, and eventually even those we have difficulty with, people we don't like, people we may even have anger or hatred towards. So those are more difficult, and so it's good to get familiar with the practice first before trying to generate compassion for them. But it's not impossible. So if we make ourselves more and more familiar with this mind of compassion, then it gets easier to feel it for even people we don't like, people we think are doing harmful things. So it's a gradual development of this state of mind of compassion. And in the traditional explanations in Buddhism, they don't normally mention yourself, but similar with loving kindness, many of us who were brought up in the West have difficulty feeling love and compassion for ourselves, and even have opposite feelings like hating ourselves. So that's not right. That's unhelpful. We need to change that and learn to be kind to ourselves, have love and compassion for ourselves, so we can include ourselves in the meditation as well. And even if it, as I mentioned before with the meditation on loving kindness, if you're saying these words to yourself, those phrases, you may think, but I don't feel it. I don't really feel that way. That's okay. It's enough just to say those words to yourself. And if you keep doing that again and again, getting your mind more and more familiar with those kind of thoughts, then slowly your mind will start to change. And you will be able to have the actual feelings. So don't worry if they don't arise right away in the beginning. It may take time, but it will eventually happen. Now I have a little bit more about compassion, and then we'll move on to the third immeasurable, which is called joy or sympathetic joy. So if we could have the slides, I made some slides. So I'll just start talking as we wait for the slides to come up. So last week I mentioned a verse from Shantideva, Indian master Shantideva, who wrote a text called Engaging in the Bodhisattva Deeds. And I mentioned one verse from that text where he talks about the good qualities of suffering. And there were some questions about that from Lakme. So I wanted to just show that verse on the screen so you can read it and then talk a little bit more about it. I'll just read the verse while we're waiting for it to appear on the screen. I don't know what's happening. It's not appearing. Yeah. Do you have the slides for tonight? Yeah, they're just not appearing. There it is. Okay. So this verse is kind of talking about how problems are not necessarily bad. Normally when we have a problem like sickness or financial problems or job problems or relationship problems, we tend to feel, oh no, this is bad. I don't want this. That's our normal reaction. So Shantideva is saying, well, problems aren't necessarily bad. So the verse says, furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled, compassion arises for those in cyclic existence, negativities are shunned, and joys found in virtue. So he's pointing out here things that benefits that we can get when we experience problems or suffering. But of course, we have to know how to use problems and transform them into something beneficial, something like that will help our spiritual practice. So the context of this verse, it's in chapter 6 of the text, and chapter 6 is all about patience, how to develop patience. And one kind of patience is learning to put up with difficulties without becoming upset, depressed, discouraged, and so on, but being able to keep our mind positive and optimistic even when things are not going well for us. So that's considered one type of patience. And so Shantideva is saying that, well, problems aren't necessarily bad. There are things we can learn from them. Like we can become less arrogant. Our arrogance, our pride will decrease. Our compassion will increase because we become able to understand what others are going through, the kind of suffering and problems others go through. And so that can increase our compassion. And then negativities are shunned and joy is found in virtue. So that has to do with karma. We think about how the problem we're experiencing is happening to us because we've created bad karma, negative karma in the past. And so then it becomes like a lesson. Oh, I have to stop creating bad karma so that I don't have problems. So it helps us to be more concerned about the karma we create, avoiding negative karma and creating virtuous karma, which is the cause of happiness. So these are some benefits that we can gain from experiencing problems. And when Shantideva is presenting this verse, he's mainly talking about problems we ourselves experiencing, bad things happening to us in our life. But I think it could also be used for problems happening with other people, problems happening in the world. The presence, the existence of things like war and poverty and so on. Not that we want those things to happen. Of course, we don't want them to happen. We want them to stop, but we may not be able to stop them. And so instead of becoming depressed and discouraged about the existence of these problems in the world, we can use some of these ideas from Shantideva to help us have a better understanding of Dharma, path to enlightenment, and more conviction in practicing the Dharma. So just to give an example of this, the Dalai Lama sometimes talks about how the takeover of Tibet by communist China, which happened in the 50s, of course, it was a horrible thing because many people were killed. There was a huge amount of suffering created by that event. And then he had to leave Tibet his life was in danger, and he went to India. So he says that, that event, even though it was bad, but it had some benefit because it enabled him to come out into the world and then travel around and meet many people, including scientists, world leaders, people interested in Buddhism, and so on. So he said, if Tibet hadn't been taken over, he might still be stuck in Tibet, where it was very difficult for people to come in and out. So he wouldn't have had the opportunities that he had, to travel around the world and meet people and teach them the Dharma. So he pointing out some good things that came from that tragedy. Yeah. So the point of this is that as practitioners of the Dharma, we try to keep our minds positive and optimistic when we face problems, whether it's our own personal problems or problems we are aware of in the world around us, and use those problems as part of our practice. Bring them, they have the expression, taking them into the path, using them in the path in our spiritual practice. There's a lot of teachings about how to do this. For example, one book called Transforming Problems into Happiness by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where he talks about a lot of methods you can use to do this. So if you're interested in that, then you can get that book. Okay, then next slide, there's a little bit more about compassion I'd like to talk about. So the line in the Prayer of the Four Immeasurables that is related to compassion says, "May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering." So when it comes to suffering, there's lots of different kinds of suffering. And probably ordinary people are certainly aware of the more gross types of suffering, like sickness and pain and hunger and starvation and war and homelessness and so on. So these are obvious, gross forms of suffering. But Buddhism recognizes other types of suffering that aren't as obvious, that are more subtle. So, for example, mental suffering, although that's also recognized in the West. Some people have severe depression or mental illnesses that make it difficult for them to, live an ordinary life, function in the world. So that's also a kind of suffering. But Buddhism also talks about how just the fact that in our mind there are delusions or afflictions like attachment, aversion, ignorance, jealousy. So we're not free from those afflicted states of mind, those delusions. Without choice, they sometimes come up in our mind. We find ourselves feeling angry or feeling jealous or feeling depressed or fearful, anxious. So these disturbing thoughts and emotions are there in our mind, and we suffer from them. They cause us suffering and unhappiness right now in this present life. But they also cause suffering in a longer term sense. Buddhism has this explanation of samsara, the state where we are not enlightened, we're not free, but we keep going around again and again in the cycle of death and rebirth, taking birth, living, dying, again, being reborn, living, dying. So we keep going through that cycle of death and birth again and again without any choice or control, and often experiencing very, unpleasant situations, terrible situations. So just the fact of being stuck in that situation of samsara, life after life, that itself is a type of suffering. In fact, that's said to be the main type of suffering, the root suffering that we are all afflicted with. So I'm just pointing out that in Buddhism, there's a lot of talk about suffering, the different kinds of suffering, from gross to subtle, and mental and physical and so on. So this is one thing that we learn about and we meditate on. Not to become depressed, of course. The point isn't to become depressed, but to generate the wish to be free of suffering so that we'll do what we can to get ourselves out of suffering and then also help others to get out of suffering. And compassion is that state of mind that becomes aware of the suffering of other beings around us and then is motivated. That motivates us to do what we can to help them. And in our tradition of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, we aspire to become enlightened, fully enlightened beings, because that is the best way of helping others. If we become enlightened, we become a Buddha, we will be able to help others, have a lot of wisdom and other qualities with which we can help others and guide them to become free of suffering. So I'm just pointing out here that, we may only, before you study Buddhism, you're aware of a certain amount of suffering, certain types of suffering, but there's a lot others that are talked about in Buddhism. And so when we generate compassion, we wish them to be free of all of those different kinds of suffering. And also the causes of suffering. So that's also mentioned in this line. So the causes of suffering are mainly two things. One is karma, negative actions, such as killing, stealing, lying, and so on. So when people, ourselves and others and so on, engage in those actions, we are creating the causes to experience suffering in the future. And the other main cause of suffering are the afflictions or delusions in our mind, like greed, hatred, ignorance, that motivate our actions, that sort of impel us to do negative actions like killing, stealing, and so on. So, so when we wish others to be free of suffering, we have this thought, I want sentient beings to be free of suffering. It's also important to wish them to be free of the causes of suffering. Because as long as those causes of suffering, negative karma and afflictions, are still there in their minds, then they will continue experiencing suffering and problems again and again. So even if at a certain point in time, on a certain day, maybe they don't have any big problems happening in their life and they may feel quite happy. But if they aren't free from afflictions and negative karma, then sooner or later they will run into suffering. Suffering will happen to them because of those two causes of suffering. And so if we really want sentient beings to be free of suffering, we want them to be free of these causes as well. And basically what that means is they have to get out of samsara. They have to be free of samsara and reach enlightenment or reach nirvana, a state of freedom. But, thinking in a long-term sense, in a vast, expansive sense, this is what we are wishing for. We wish everyone to be free of both suffering and the causes of suffering. And of course, realistically, we can't make that happen now. We're not in a position to bring that about, even though we wish for it to happen. But we can still be creating the causes ourselves. We ourselves can be creating the causes to get ourselves out of suffering, to free ourselves from suffering, just like the Buddha did. And then once we are free, and enlightened like the Buddha, then we're in a position where we can help others. We can guide them to be free of suffering as well. So there's really a lot involved in compassion, but whatever you're able to understand, whatever you're able to feel and work on in yourself, then that's fantastic. And one more thing too about compassion. Compassion, I mean, this is my own perception, my own idea, but when it comes to ethics in Buddhism, ethical practice, ethical conduct, I think it's really based on compassion, because when we have compassion, we understand that nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to be killed. Nobody wants to be spoken to with hurtful words. Nobody wants their things taken away from them or lied to and so on. And so when we have that awareness that nobody wants suffering and we care about that and we don't want to make them suffer, then that is what enables us to live ethically, to refrain from harmful actions. That's really what ethics is all about in Buddhism. Ethics is refraining from actions that cause harm, that cause suffering to others. And so, so the more we can feel compassion, then the better we will be able to keep good ethical conduct. And that's good for ourselves as well, because if we do harmful actions to others, we ourselves will suffer. We're creating suffering for ourselves. So it's good for others to be compassionate and non-harmful, but it's also good for ourselves. Okay, so next I would like to move on to the next of the four immeasurable thoughts. Sometimes it's called just joy, but I think a more accurate term would be sympathetic joy or maybe empathetic joy. And this is expressed by this line that says, "May all beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering." And the meaning of joy or sympathetic joy is sharing in the joy of others, feeling happy when others are happy. And so I think it is better to call it sympathetic joy rather than simply joy, because the word joy is often used just for our own personal happiness, like when we feel happy about good things happening to us, good experiences that we're having, or we talk about taking joy in our work or feeling joyful when we can go on a holiday. But this particular state of mind, it's called mudita in Sanskrit Pali term is mudita. And it's funny, here in the Abbey, Shavasti Abbey, we have 4 cats, and they are named after the 4 immeasurables. So one of the cats is named Mudita. But Mudita isn't very joyful. She's quite moody. she's more moody than joyful. Sometimes she's happy, but sometimes she's kind of grumpy. But naming our cats after the 4 immeasurable thoughts, we're hoping that they will start to develop those qualities in themselves. Anyway, so this particular thought or feeling is, being happy about the happiness of others, sharing in the happiness of others. And it's something we already feel. It's something we already experience. So, for example, if there's someone you really love, someone you really care about, like a family member, if you're a parent, then you would feel this with your child and so on. So when that person is happy, when something good is happening in that person's life and they are really happy, they are joyful, then you feel happy too. You are happy when you see them happy. You're sharing in their happiness. So this is why the term sympathetic joy is appropriate. And it's based on loving kindness, because if we cultivate loving kindness, that means we want others to be happy. And if we genuinely want that, if we really want others to be happy, then when we see them happy, we will be happy too. Okay. And it's the last bullet point says it's a positive or virtuous state of mind. So when we share another's happiness, we create positive karma, good karma, which is the cause of even more happiness in the future. So it's something virtuous. It's a virtuous state of mind when we can be happy when others are happy. So we already feel it with some people, but we may not feel it all the time with everybody. So it's something we can work on, we can cultivate, we can, train our minds to feel it more and more. And I'll talk about how to do that. And I think maybe we'll have time tonight to do a meditation on this. But first, let's look at the obstacles. What keeps us from being able to feel this way? So there's a far enemy, the opposite state of mind, and that is jealousy or envy or resentment. So those states of mind are quite similar. And jealousy or envy, this is one of the afflictions. And I think it's particularly painful because it's a combination of both attachment and aversion or anger or hatred. So when it arises, it's usually towards another person. It comes up because we see that that person has something that we want, and we can't stand the fact that they have it and we don't. So there's attachment there, attachment to what the other person has, and anger or hatred or this kind of unbearable feeling that they have that thing and we don't have it. So have you ever felt that way? I think it's just human nature to feel that way, to feel jealous. And I think resentment is kind of similar. It's a different term, but it's a similar kind of feeling that we, when we become aware that someone is enjoying some success, some good fortune, and we feel, they have more than we do, they're in a better situation than we are, then there's this kind of painful feeling in our heart. Instead of being joyful for what that person is experiencing, there's this resentment. That's kind of a very ugly and painful state of mind. So I'll talk about some ways of dealing with jealousy or envy. It's actually said that the remedy for jealousy and envy is this joy, feeling joyful for the other person's good fortune. But that's not easy, right? When you're in the throes of jealousy or envy, to just completely go to the opposite state of mind and think, oh, I'm so happy for them. Yeah, you might say those words, but it won't be so genuine. So I have plenty of experience of this to go on, so I can share with you what I have found helpful. So first, you need to be honest. You need to be, acknowledging the presence of jealousy or envy. If it's there in your mind, don't pretend it's not there. Don't just sweep it under the carpet and deny it, but be honest about the presence of that state of mind in yourself, and then observe it. How does it affect your mind? What effects does it have on your mind, on your feelings, on your body, on your behavior? Okay, so just get to know it. Get to know jealousy, envy, resentment, and how it affects you. And you can ask yourself questions like, is it pleasant or painful to feel this way? Is this a pleasant feeling or is it a painful feeling? Does it feel good or is it unpleasant? Yeah. I don't think, I can't imagine anyone finding it pleasant. It's very unpleasant, very painful. And you could also ask, is this state of mind, is it selfish, self-centered, or is it altruistic, caring about others? Whose welfare, whose well-being are you concerned about when you feel jealous or envy? Yourself or others? You could also ask yourself, is it permanent or impermanent? Is it a permanent state of mind that you're always in every minute, every second? Or is it something that just arises occasionally? So that can help because, when we're in this state of mind of jealousy or envy, we might have the feeling that, oh, it's going to last forever. I'm going to feel like this forever. It's never going to go away. But I'm sure that's not the case. Nobody feels that way all the time. It's something that comes and goes. So it's an impermanent thing, transitory. Yeah, like the weather. Sometimes there's good weather, sometimes there's bad weather. So even when there's bad weather, it'll change. It's not going to be there forever. So that can help to see that it's just something transitory. So just get to know. What I'm trying to say here is get more familiar with this state of mind and understand it better. And another thing that could be helpful is this is something I found. It's a little more complex, but when I found myself feeling jealous of another person, then I would ask myself, well, what if I was that other person? What if I was in that other person's situation and I did have what that person has that I'm kind of jealous of? I just try to imagine that. Yeah. Would I be happy? Okay. If I could somehow trade places with that person and be that person, have what that person has, would I be happy? And I mean, you can explore that yourself, but what I realized was that I thought I probably wouldn't be happy, because if I have this habit of envying others, seeing other people who seem to have more than I do, better than I do, and I'm always envying them, then even if I had what that person has, probably eventually I would become dissatisfied and want something else, something more. It's like that expression, the grass is always greener on the other side. No matter how much you have, there's always somebody who has more, who has better. And so if you let yourself follow these kind of thoughts and feelings of looking at what other people have, wanting what they have, you're never going to be happy. You're never going to find satisfaction because you're always going to be dissatisfied, wanting more, wanting better. And so that's what I came to when I did that analysis of my own mind, my own thoughts and experiences. And so then the solution is to learn to be content with what you have. Learn to be happy and content with what you do have. Like that expression, count your blessings. Yeah. Look at what you have going for you, all the good things in your own life, and learn to be, happy with those. So that's one way of working on overcoming jealousy or envy. And then if you do that and you're able to sort of reduce the feelings of jealousy and envy, then you can try to cultivate joy for the other person, even if it's not really how you feel. But just try to cultivate that state of mind. Just say the words to yourself, I am happy for that person. I'm happy that that person has da-da-da-da-da or is da-da-da-da-da. How wonderful for them. I'm happy for them. And remember loving kindness, that quality that we were talking about earlier, where we wish others to be happy. Yeah? Wouldn't it be wonderful if that person could be happy? They are happy. They do have all these good things in their life. I'm happy for them. It's wonderful. And so even if it isn't 100% genuine, but just to say those things to yourself and try to cultivate those feelings will probably help, will probably put you into a different state of mind. And I'll tell you a story where I once used this meditation to deal with a kind of difficult situation I was in. It wasn't a situation where I was feeling jealous or envious. I was in India and I was traveling from one Dharma center to another Dharma center, and I had to stay overnight in Varanasi. And they had booked a hotel for me, so I went to the hotel and checked in. And by the time I got to the hotel, it was something like 9 o'clock at night. It was kind of late. And I got there, and there was a wedding going on in the courtyard of this hotel. And they had music playing. It was so loud, you could hardly hear yourself think. And my heart sank. I thought, I'm not going to get any sleep tonight, because I've heard, Indian weddings can go on all night long, that music all night long. And so I said something to the clerk when I was checking in, and he said, don't worry, they will stop at 11 o'clock. And I thought, yeah, right. I didn't completely trust that. But anyway, I went to my room, and I couldn't do anything. The music was so loud. I couldn't go to bed. I couldn't go to sleep. And even trying to meditate was, yeah. So then I had this idea of rejoicing in this situation that was going on. So I sat down on the bed and I thought, wow, these people, there's a couple, a man and a woman, who have fallen in love, and they love each other, and now they're making this commitment to each other, and this is a really joyful time for them, and also for their family and their friends. Everyone is coming together to celebrate this love that these two people have for each other. And so I thought about that and how happy they are, and I was happy for them. I really tried, and it worked. I have to say, it really worked. I really got myself into a state of mind where I was happy for them, and I was also wishing that their marriage will be wonderful, they will love each other, and everybody will be happy. I just had all these kind of positive wishes for them. And yeah, so I got into such a happy state of mind that yeah, the music didn't bother me. I was no longer bothered by the music. So it really helped in that particular situation. And I think, there's other situations as well that you could use that. And I'm not sure if I could have kept that up all night. Unfortunately, the music did stop at 11 and I could go to sleep. But anyway, it is a way to make your mind happy. Yeah, anytime your mind is not happy, is feeling, unhappy, grumbling, jealous, envious, resentful, then to think, oh, look at this person, how nice it is that they have this or they have that or they're like this or like that. You're just focusing on things in other people and being happy for their happiness. Okay, so that's the far enemy, jealousy, envy, resentment, and ways that we can overcome those. Then there's a number of near enemies. So these are a near enemy, again, is a state of mind that is similar to what we're trying to cultivate, but isn't really. So we could be fooled into thinking that this is the joy that we're trying to cultivate, but it's not. So one is called exhilaration, and this is like self-centered pleasure. So I would think, like, for example, if you're at a party or you're, at a cafe with a bunch of friends and we're talking and enjoying the foods, the drinks, and we get really excited. We feel this joy, this excitement. And we might think that we are feeling sympathetic joy over the happiness of the people around us. We're happy that they are happy. But we have to be careful. We have to check, is this really altruistic happiness, joy, sympathetic joy? Or is it our own personal joy, like self-centered, because we are getting what we want? We're getting attention, we're having nice food to eat, nice drinks. Yeah, so we're just experiencing pleasure and mistaking it for sympathetic joy. So this is something we have to look at in our self-check in our own mind. Who are we more concerned about, more focused on, me and my self-centered pleasure, or others? I mean, this doesn't mean that there's something wrong with being happy in those situations. That, it's completely fine to be happy. But ideally, what we're trying to cultivate in Buddhism is more altruistic joy, taking joy in the happiness of others. I think probably, I'm not a parent. I didn't have any children in this life, but I would imagine that parents know this because, I think to be a parent, to be a good parent, you really have to focus on your children and put aside your own needs and wishes. And so, so good, loving parents take so much joy. They're more happy about their children, more concerned about their children than about themselves. And, doing what will bring happiness and pleasure to their children rather than just their own self. But I think we all have experiences of that, where we put someone else's happiness first before our own. And then the second near enemy is insincerity. For example, pretending to be happy about another person's success, but secretly feeling unhappy, feeling jealous. So if at work, maybe you're someone you're working with, gets a promotion and, is very happy, very excited, coming and telling you this news. And you wanted that permission yourself. You wanted that, hoping for that yourself. So you probably feel inside you're not so happy, that maybe you put on a face where you say, "Oh, how wonderful! I'm really happy for you." So that's like, yeah, not genuine sympathetic joy, but pretending. But of course, this doesn't mean that we should show our true feelings and say, "That's not fair. I deserve that, not you. I should have gotten that, not you." So that wouldn't be polite or kind or appropriate. So yeah, I mean, if we really are feeling unhappy, upset inside, then it is good to try not to show those feelings, but try to share in the other person's happiness. But just be aware. The point here is to be aware, to be honest about what you're really feeling inside, and then work on that. Okay, so if you really are unhappy, really are maybe jealous, then when you have a chance to do so, to sit down and do some reflection, then work on remedies to jealousy, envy, resentment, and see if you can reduce those feelings and bring up the feeling of joy, sympathetic joy. It may take time and effort, but it's so much nicer because feeling jealous, envious, resentful is very, very painful. And then the last near enemy is feeling joyful about something that's unethical. Okay. For example, somebody robbed a house, and they got away with some money, some jewelry, something. And they're happy, they're excited that they managed to have this successful robbery. And if that person tells you, what do? Do you take joy in their joy? Do you share in their joy? Or hunting, okay? If somebody went hunting and they came home with a deer, or they went fishing and they came home with, a big fish, and they're really happy, really excited about that. So this is kind of a difficult situation because, I mean, for that person, they may not see anything wrong in what they have done, but if we are, according to Buddhism, those actions are harmful, are negative. They've actually created negative karma, which will bring suffering for themselves and also harmed others. Yeah, their actions were harmful to others. So those are not things to rejoice in, to be happy about. So I would think in this kind of situation, it would be best to have a clear understanding in your own mind about the inappropriateness of the person's actions. So in your mind, you're clear that what they did was unethical, was harmful, but try not to be judgmental. Yeah, like, oh, what a horrible person. Try not to judge the person, but instead the action. That action is something harmful for others, but also for oneself. So just have that clear understanding that the action is harmful, and try to have compassion for the victims, like if there was an animal or a fish that was killed, or the people whose house was robbed, have compassion for them. And also compassion for the perpetrator of those actions, because they've done something unethical, something harmful, created bad karma. And if they don't recognize what they did and purify it, then they're going to experience suffering. So have compassion for everybody involved in the situation. And then try to think of some skillful way of dealing with the situation. Yeah, it depends on the other person. Yeah, if they are, whether or not they are open to hearing an explanation about karma. Yeah, that what has just been done is something harmful. But if the person has no interest in that, you're really sure they're not going to listen to you, they don't care about karma, they don't believe in karma, then then maybe just leave it. Just keep your own mind in a positive state, and maybe you could hope, wish, pray that the person will change their ways and stop doing those negative actions. So the point here is that sympathetic joy only applies to joy or happiness that someone is experiencing through ethical behavior, okay, through something ethical and not something unethical. Does that make sense? Any questions so far about any of these things I'm sharing? Cynthia?
Venerable, thank you for your teachings. I just have maybe two quick questions. One is, if we're just not happy about a person's success, for example, is that automatically a negative? Is that automatically a negative action or negative mental state that creates negative karma? Just not feeling it. The second question is based on the earlier slide where you broke down negative karma and affliction. I'm just thinking in terms of purification then, because affliction seems to trigger the karma rather than the other way around, whether we should focus more on trying to purify the affliction because it has more impact. Like, just
Okay, wait, there's
thank
quite
you.
a lot there. I
Okay,
wasn't quite
sorry.
sure about your first question.
Just a clarification that if someone like had some happy event and is like if I'm not feeling happy, is that automatically tell me that I'm jealous? And because I kind of just, is there something there that I have to reflect on? Uh, or is it
No,
just indifference that is that neutral?
no, I think a lack of joy, a lack of happiness doesn't necessarily mean you're jealous. You have to look for you have to check yourself. You have to get to know what jealousy feels like, what envy feels like. So just a lack of joy or happiness doesn't necessarily mean you're jealous. It could be that you're just, yeah, like you say, just kind of indifferent, not feeling anything. You're preoccupied with something else. So joy, this practice of sympathetic joy, is something that arises naturally when we really care about someone. Like if you're a parent and your child comes home with a report card and they got good grades, they got praised by their teacher, and they're really happy. So you're happy too. It's just a natural feeling because you care about your child. So sometimes this feeling just arises naturally, but it doesn't always arise naturally. But we can practice it, we can cultivate it, we can bring ourselves into that state of mind by focusing on someone's happiness and then deliberately feeling happy about that. So, yeah, yeah. So that was the first question. And the second question, something about purification of
Yeah, in your two breakdown of negative karma, the two causes of suffering,
causes of
two
suffering. Yeah.
yeah, two types or something. Negative karma and affliction. It seems the affliction is the one that causes the negative karma. Is
Yeah.
that correct? So
Yeah.
therefore, when we purify, would it be more beneficial for us to try and purify the affliction itself, which actually I'm assuming those are the mental negative negative virtues, the 10 from the 10
Mm.
non-virtues, that's the mental
Yeah.
non-virtue. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Well, among the 10 non-virtuous actions, three of them are mental actions: covetousness, ill will, and then wrong views. And so those three are related to afflictions. Covetousness is related to attachment. It comes from attachment. Ill will is related to anger, hatred. So that's the affliction behind that. And then wrong views is related to ignorance. Um, so, yes, of course, if we have committed any of those three non-virtues of mind, then when we do purification practice, it's good to think of those and purify them. But the afflictions themselves are much deeper and harder to purify. I mean, we, to get rid of anger, to get rid of attachment, to get rid of ignorance. We can't do that by doing purification practice like, Vajrasattva or 35 Buddhas. So we need more than that. To completely get rid of afflictions, we actually need to realize emptiness, the true nature of things. So it's only by realizing emptiness that it's possible to eliminate the afflictions. But even before we're able to do that, we can still work on reducing our afflictions. Like there's lots of remedies to anger, how to have less anger, less hatred. There's also remedies to attachment, reduce our attachment. So it's good to work on those as well. Because, yeah, the afflictions, those are the main problem. As long as we have those in our mind, they will motivate us to create negative actions, negative karma, which is the cause of suffering. So those are really the main thing we want to overcome and free ourselves from. But it's not easy. It takes time. And yeah, just doing purification practice isn't enough for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Lakme?
Thank you, Venerable. I have a question because we are full of feelings. We are feeling either this or that, whether it is feeling joy or the obstacles of joy. Is there a state of in between? Is there a state of neutrality?
Is there a state of neutrality? Yeah, sure.
Not feeling this or that. Is that
Sorry?
not feeling this or that, not feeling either of
Sure,
those?
sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm just pointing out, like here, we're focusing on how to cultivate virtuous, positive states of mind, like love, loving kindness, compassion, joy. So those are virtuous. Those are good states of mind. We want to have more of those. And then I'm also pointing out the negative states of mind, which are the opposite to them, like anger, jealousy, and so on. But of course, there's a lot of other states of mind that are neither positive nor negative, neither happy nor unhappy, but just kind of in between, neutral. For sure, they do exist as well. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, because whatever the situation is, at least I'm habituated to either feel positive or negative.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when it is negative and it is not right to express it, I might say, I do not know because I'm in the process of maybe putting it rightly. So I think I need to dwell in that longer to figure that out.
You need to figure it out.
Spend more time to figure it out.
Okay.
That state of mind. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess, Buddhist psychology, the Buddhist teachings, what we're mainly trying to do is become aware of afflictive states of mind, painful, deluded states of mind, because we do have those, not all the time, but sometimes we get angry, we have jealousy, we have a desire, attachment. So we need to become aware of those because those are the source of suffering. Those make us suffer. Yeah. And there are things we can do to manage them, to reduce them, so they don't come up so much, so strongly, and cause so much suffering in our life. And then there are these positive states of mind that are beautiful and wonderful and joyful, good for us and good for others. And we want to have more of those. It's good to have more of those, more love, more compassion, more joy. So a lot of Buddhist teachings are about those two things, how to have less negative states of mind and more positive states of mind. Yeah. So then we will be happier, we will have less suffering, but also the people around us, our family, our friends, or people we work with. If we can be in a better state of mind, then we'll be able to bring more happiness to others and less likely to do things that would cause them to suffer. So that's mainly our focus in this series of talks. So if we could get the slides again, we're running out of time, but just to look at the last couple of slides. So one of them has a meditation on joy. We don't have time to do that tonight, but we can do it next week, the beginning of class, how to meditate on joy. So you start by first settling down, taking a few minutes or however long you need to settle your mind down. And then you can generate loving kindness, like thinking how wonderful it would be if all beings could be happy. Then bring to mind different people, starting with relatives and friends, people you already like, you already care about. And then with each one, you can say phrases like these. I'm happy that you are happy. May your happiness continue. May your happiness increase. May your good fortune shine. So I got these phrases. I can't remember where I got these from actually, but anyway, this is one way of meditating on sympathetic joy, but you can also use your own words, your own phrases for cultivating that state of mind. So we'll do a meditation next week on this so you can get a taste of it. And then there's one more slide I wanted to share, this quotation from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He said, well, he must have said this quite a few years ago when there were 7 billion people. Now there's more than that. But anyway, he said, there are 7 billion people in the world. That means 7 billion opportunities for us to be happy. And now we can say it's 8 billion, or maybe, I don't know what it is now. 8 billion. So what he's talking here about joy, sympathetic joy. So we have, with every person in the world, there's some way we can make ourselves happy by wishing them to be happy or sharing in their happiness, sharing in their good fortune. So with each person in the world, we have the chance to be happy if we know how to do it and if we put our energy into it. So the Dalai Lama, every time I see him, he looks happy. I think he knows how to do it. Keep his mind happy. So we'll stop there for tonight. And next week will be our last class. And we'll do a meditation on joy that we talked about tonight. And then we have one more of the 4 immeasurables, which is equanimity. So I'll talk about that. And that's a really important one. And hopefully we'll have time to meditate on that as well. Okay, so let's finish with the dedication prayers. Dedicating our merit, sharing our merit with all other beings, for them to be happy and free of suffering. And also for our teacher, like His Holiness, to have a long life. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. So when we pray for the long life of the Dalai Lama, we can also think of all other teachers teaching the Dharma. May they all have long lives. So we could have that prayer again. Disappeared. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-fulfilling, wish-granting jewel, source of every benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, patient in bearing the hardships of spreading the teachings of the Muni in general, and the teachings of the victorious Jamgon, Tsongkhapa, in hundreds of directions, Lord of Dharma, holding the 3 vows and wearing saffron robes, please quickly return as the glory of the peerless teachings. So thank you for joining, and thank you, Sila, for hosting, facilitating. And again, if you have questions, you can send them to the center and they will forward them to me and I'll cover them next week. Thank you.
Thank you.